Hi, let's have a look at another question, paper 1 question. This question came in May 2022, time zone 1 for both standard level and high level, the same question, question number 2. The magnitude of the resultant of two forces acting on a body is 12 Newton. This is the resultant force. Which pair of forces acting on the body can combine to produce this result? Can combine to produce this result. So when I think about this question and also looking at different options, like, okay, we have 1 Newton and 2 Newton, 1 and 14, 5 and 6, 6 and 7. So you may think of vectors. I mean, this question is basically on vectors, right? Because you say resultant force, and force is a vector. So let's say, okay, we have like two or three different possibilities of these two forces, right? Let's say we have the two forces acting on the same direction. Okay, so if the two forces acting on the same direction, so what you're gonna do, the resultant force will be the addition or parallel to each other or in the same direction. So it will be the addition of these two forces, right? I mean, let's say this on the x direction, right? I don't know, like let's say 5 and 6. Okay, so let's say this is 5 Newton and this is 6 Newton. Yeah, sorry, the scale is not very accurate. So you say, okay, so one option, I'm going to say the resultant force here is going to be 11 Newton, right? The addition. Now, this is one possibility. Now, the second possibility, that the two forces will be like opposite to each other, right? So one force might act this way and the other one act the other way. So since, you know, in vectors, so we can just subtract them, right? And so the resultant force, let's say this is 5, right? And this is 6, right? So the resultant force in this case is going to be 1 Newton. Okay. So I call here the first case like the maximum resultant, right? If the two forces are in the same direction. And the second case here, I call it the minimum option, where the two forces are on the same line of action and opposite to each other. So then the minimum resultant force here is 1 Newton. So obviously 12 Newton is outside the range, you know, 11 and 1, so 5. So this option C here is not the right answer, but I'm trying to show you how to think about this question. So now the third option here, that, you know, if the two forces, right, somehow makes, like, you know, in a make some angle in a rotation angle like that, right? Also, they don't have to be like 90 degree, whatever that angle is. So let's say, okay, so let's say this is F1 and this is F2. So by addition vector, you can say the resultant force will be the vector that would close this triangle, but on the opposite direction. So this will be the resultant force. Okay, and that's okay, and that's how we can think. Okay, if I don't find 12 Newton as a maximum or minimum, you know, between the two forces, it might be the third option, because it depends on the angle here, right? The resultant force can be somewhere in between. So if you look, for example, at option D, you have 6 and 7. So 6 and 7, the maximum here is so C now is out. So the maximum for 6 and 7, 13 Newton, right? The minimum is 1 Newton, right? 7 minus 6. So 12 Newton lies between 13 and 1. So option D is the right answer.